Thank you, Norma. Thank you, Susie. Once you get the hang of this song, I encourage you to sing along with me. It's called Forgiveness is the Way. Forgiveness is the way I am moving on, moving on, moving on from heartache and pain. Forgiveness is the way I am moving on to the peace I am within. So I forgive this, I do this for me. I forgive you to set my heart free. I forgive myself, yes, without judgment, as I release. I'm moving on to the peace I am within. Forgiveness is the way I am moving on from heartache and pain. Forgiveness is the way I am moving on to the peace I am within. So I forgive this, I do this for me. I forgive you to set my heart free. I forgive myself, yes, without judgment, as I release. I'm moving on to the peace I am within. So I forgive this, I do this for me. I forgive you to set my heart free. I forgive myself, yes, without judgment, as I release. I'm moving on to the peace I am within. I'm moving on to the peace I am within. I'm moving on to the peace I am within.
Let's move on to the peace within. With a gentle exhalation and maybe closing your eyes or softening your gaze, move within. Move within to that still, silent place in consciousness that is filled with light and love and wisdom. That inner wellspring of substance, intelligence, that wellspring of peace. That bubbles up in consciousness and overflows as we forgive. Overflows as we forgive. Forgiveness takes that heartache and transmutes it into more life, into more love. That heartache that can pull us away from the truth of who we are, from the truth of who anyone else is. That heartache that can make us bitter, that can pull us away from the silence and the peace within. So forgiveness is that gift we give ourselves that we might show up and be the living presence of the Christ. Sometimes that heartache is attached to random thoughts and ideas and beliefs that would separate us from one another, that would create walls of division, that would tear us away from the possibility of peace. Peace within ourselves and peace within our world. And so we practice. We're invited to practice on a daily basis to forgive. Because forgiveness is our path to peace. And so with a gentle, gentle breath, with a gentle breath, see if you can't find perhaps just the very slightest twinge of heartache. And see what there is to forgive. See what there is to forgive right here and right now. Within you. Forgiveness is not condoning behavior. It is not excusing. It is simply saying, this will not hold me hostage. I will be free. Forgiveness is my path to peace. Forgiveness is my path to peace. The peace I am within. This practice that we, in any moment of discomfort, of separation, of limitation, we practice in the stillness and the silence in community so that when we're out in the manifest world and that non-peaceful presence shows up, we can breathe and return to this place within. This stillness, this silence that we carry with us. And we forgive. We forgive because we are forgiven. The forgiveness of God is in us, and so we forgive. And it is our path to peace. and for this we give praise. Forgiveness is my path to peace. Affirm that with me. Forgiveness is my path to peace. Knowing that peace is the truth of who I am, I invite you to, when you're ready, bring your attention and your awareness back to this manifest place, the appearance of separation, but hold with you the truth. There is only one, and forgiveness is my path to peace. And so it is, and so we let it be.
Forgiveness is the way I'm moving on from heartache and pain. Forgiveness is the way I am moving on to the peace I am within. So I forgive this. I do this for me. I forgive you to set my heart free. I forgive myself, yes, without judgment, as I release. I'm moving on to the peace I am within. So I forgive this. I do this for me. I forgive you to set my heart free. I forgive myself, yes, without judgment, as I release. I'm moving on to the peace I am within. I'm moving on to the peace I am within. I'm moving on to the peace I am within. And as we prepare to receive Rev Todd's message, let us do this song. Perhaps if you may know it, then I encourage you to sing along with me. It is a song by Denise Rossier. Here we go. It's called God Within Me. I love with the heart of God within me. I sing with the voice of God within me. I rest in the peace of God within me. Everything praises God within me. I know with the mind of God within me. I pray with the faith of God within me. I trust in the power of God within me. Everything praises joy of God within me. I shine with the light of God within me. I am who I am 'cause of God within me. Everything praises God within me. This part you can sing along with me. Everything praises God. Everything praises God again. Everything praises God. Everything praises God within me.
Deidrey. Everything praises God within me. We can hear that in a couple of different ways. It's that everything within me praises God. And also everything praises God, which is present in us. Because God is everywhere equally present. That means that the God is out here and out there and in you, but God is in me because God is everywhere present. Everywhere. And we rest in that and we praise that. And sometimes it's hard to remember that. You ever notice that? That occasionally, how do we do this? And so let's pause for a moment. If you're willing to just briefly close your eyes, maybe place your hands over your heart chakra. Everything praises God within me. Together, everything praises God within me. We sing these words and we recognize and we realize that we love the very act of loving. This spiritual love happens and comes through us from that wellspring that is God inside of us. But when we claim that identity, it means something. Right? Because everything that we ascribe to God, the way we describe God, all of those wonderful experiences that we ascribe to this living presence then are present inside of us. If God is within us, then also divine justice, divine integrity, divine truth must also live and come into the world through us. Yes? That is our responsibility. That because God is just and loving and God is integrity, that God is truth and that God is absolute, we must do our part to bring those things into the world. Whew. This is not a new story in the history of the world or even in the history of our faith tradition. I want to remind you of Amos. Everybody knows who Amos is, right? not the guy that makes cookies. Right? He was an ordinary man. Amos was a shepherd, a dresser of sycamore trees. I don't really know what that means. I think maybe he may have even farmed figs, right? But he sat in his stillness, his silence, and he heard this voice. Now he is called to speak truth to a nation that had grown wealthy and powerful and self-satisfied, right? And he spoke to the people who practice religion outwardly, but ignored justice inwardly. This is Amos chapter 3, verse 8. The lion hath roared, who will not fear? The Lord Jehovah hath spoken, who can but prophesy? And Charles Fillmore wrote that this verse signifies that the die is cast. The results of the misapplied law must be reaped. When man refuses to turn from error and to repent, the law of forgiveness is not able to express. Man's disobedience of the law works out in mankind and in man's affairs in different forms of suffering, in poverty and in lack. That's a little bit crazy sounding. But it's true that if God is love and God is justice and God is integrity and that God is truth, then it has to live through us. And when we're not living into that truth, into that absolute, then we're going to end up seeing things like suffering, like poverty, like lack. So where's this page of my notes? It's in the back here somewhere. Amos was so brilliant. He comes to the leaders and he starts talking about the misdeeds of this nation. And then he says the misdeeds of this nation and this nation. And he, if you look at a map of the world at the time that this is happening, Amos is drawing a circle. And as the circle gets closed, it centers in on the nation of Israel. Because the Israelites had been delivered from slavery. They had been delivered from Egypt. You remember the stories of Moses. And then years later, the Israelites have built temples to other gods. They were performing rituals. They were even sacrificing their children. They were not taking care of everyone in the community because they wanted to have nice clothes and nice shoes, and then they would let people go hungry. They would even sell people into slavery. And Amos said, hey, wait a minute. Stop this stuff. And it's not that he was crying out against the ritual, he was crying out against the hypocrisy. Right, we can't just show up on Sundays and together recite prayers that we've memorized and then step into the world and not be the presence of love and justice. That we cannot live the truth we know, put that truth into action in our lives, because to do that is to be a hypocrite. Right? It is he was crying out for the nation to separate, to not separate worship from ethics, to separate their faith from fairness. Can we see this? Can we understand how, and then maybe, I don't know if you can, but maybe you can see how this shows up in this amazing country that we call the United States. That's, I made a joke about my teapot. I always wonder what is he doing? What is up with this, right? This is from a sermon that Charles Fillmore gave in 1927, where he's talking about Amos. And he says, so this lesson, though it was preached 2,700 years ago, is appropriate to our day. And it's not only this nation, but every individual in the nation who is not practicing absolute justice in all the relations of his life. 1927. Fillmore's equating justice with this divine equilibrium, the law of balance within our consciousness. Right? We must seek balance. The balance between acquisitiveness, that desire to acquire. Right? We've talked about desire, that desire of the heart for what is true and good in the world. And where when we don't temper our acquisitiveness with spiritual truth, it turns into covetedness. Covetedness. That error in thinking, that sin that Judas represents later in our scriptures. And see, Judas's his desire, his covetedness was to force Jesus' hand to show that he was the Messiah. This from Charles Fillmore's sermon. Injustice works first in man's acquisitiveness, and then it works out into his outer life and tinctures everything he has to do with. And then it reacts and works in his body. Not only his body, but his affairs. We don't sit these propositions right down to their original basic principles. We read about this as the effusion of a wild-eyed prophet coming out of the wilderness and preaching without authority, as he claimed he did not have anybody to back him up. And of course, he was ridiculed and decried. Yet remember how one of the leaders of the people about that time told him he had better go back home and attend to his sycamore trees and herd his sheep, that he was out of place teaching the people. How could he teach? Now that same reception is given to the self-appointed prophets in this day, 1927, and in every age and in every day. But it is worthy of our attention to listen to the truth, regardless of just who gives it forth. Whether they are authorized by the institutions of man or not, whether they have any degrees attached to their names, listen to the prophet of truth, because sooner or later we must, every one of us, accept the truth. There is no other recourse but to get at the real foundation principles of life, of our existence. Some people have a superficial way of estimating themselves and estimating the civilization in which they live, and especially people who are animated by the grip of acquisitiveness. Acquisitiveness is one of the most dangerous faculties of the mind because it works in such a subtle way. It is backed by selfishness. That selfish ego in us, which fundamentally is good. Our ego fundamentally is good. If we didn't have the ability to draw to ourselves the things we need, we would never grow. We would never develop. But we must know how to develop and grow in the right way through the use of this faculty which draws to us. draws to us the substance, the people, the situations, all of these things that are being called to us in order for us to grow, for us to expand in consciousness, for us to be more fully the presence of love. See, this all came up in Fillmore's discussion because it was just a couple of weeks after a scandal just tore America apart. Does anybody remember the Teapot Dome scandal? It's a teapot. Has nothing to do with a teapot. We don't remember this, do we? Anybody remember this? Just the name, right? I don't even remember reading about this because it got overshadowed. But here's the first time that this was the first time in the United States. It is the criminal trial of former Interior Secretary Albert Fall and former Mammoth Oil Chief Henry Sinclair. And that trial started on October 17th, 1927, almost a century ago. This week. It was only 20 days before Fillmore gave this talk. And that scandal was it was a bribery incident that took place in the United States from 1921 to 1924 during the administration of Warren Harding. Secretary of the Interior Albert Fall had leased Navy petroleum reserves at Teapot Dome, it's a place in Wyoming, and 2 other locations in California to private oil companies at low rates without competitive bidding. And in 1922 and 23, these leases became the subject of a sensational investigation from Montana Senator Thomas Walsh. And Fall was convicted of accepting bribes from oil companies, and he became the first cabinet member to go to prison in the history of this country. Before Watergate, this was regarded as the greatest and most sensational scandal in the history of American politics. The scandal damaged the public reputation of the Harding administration, which was already diminished by its poor handling of the Great Railroad Strike in 1922 and the president's veto of the bonus bill in 1922. Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, saw that these outer scandals are mirrors of the inner corruption that happens when humanity forgets the divine law of justice that lives within us in consciousness. And now, nearly a century later, we still see echoes of his lesson. Do you see it? Can you maybe name a couple of things that have happened maybe in the past few years, but certainly within your lifetime that would make us witness questions of integrity and truth that are arising in public life, that arise in political parties of every party that's out there in this nation, that arise in faith communities? You've seen some of that. That arise in schools, in scouts, everywhere that there is leadership. We can see questions of integrity and truth arising. And the spiritual call remains the same for every one of us, that we, every person, every community, must return to the inner life of justice, return to the inner call of the God within, if we would see divine order restored in our manifest world. I love with the heart of God within me. I know with the mind of God within me. I trust in the power of God within me. This is the direction that Denise's song sends us in, that Deidrey just so beautifully led us in singing. I love with the heart of God within me. Justice forms out of love. Right? Not this amorous love, but this agape love, this understanding that God is present in all things. I know with the mind of God within me, this integrity that is the wisdom of divine knowing. We have to know with the mind of God in us and reflect on that mind of God within us before our actions. That is the place of thought. We move into that place of the divine mind within us to realign our thoughts with good thoughts, with God thoughts. Trusting in the power of God. The courage to live truthfully flows out of the divine strength of God within us. And finally, we laugh with the joy of God within, because joy balances a weary spirit. Has anybody felt weary lately? A little bit, maybe some. Everything praises God within me. Everything praises God within me. So we have to live with the God within. We have to live from the God within. We have to live as the outward appearance of the presence of the divine within us. Doesn't that sound pretty? And we like to think that that's so easy, but the truth is that sometimes that gets a little bit complicated, because have you ever been tempted to cut corners? Have you ever been tempted to speak harshly? Have you ever been tempted to compromise the truth you know with how you show up in the world? The God within me acts in justice, in just ways. Not just to get by one on the man, get one by on the man, whoever the man is, the man. See, we have to live as that presence within us. We have to live from our divine identity, even in the smallest ways. And we must do it consistently. That's how justice rolls down through human hearts. That's our personal application. And then as a community, we are called to mirror that integrity. We are called to mirror integrity in our ministries, in our finances, in our relationships, and in our service. Every act of fairness and compassion in a faith community praises the God within us and praises the presence of God in others. And truth be known that this awareness of God has given you all this, and you're twisting it, was a sermon that was given by Amos. It was a sermon that was given by Charles Fillmore, and it's been given since, and the world's not waiting on another sermon. We simply have to live from the consciousness of God in us. Live from God within us. And when we see the rest of the world cutting corners, when we see the rest of the world judging, but not judging and seeing Christ in all that there is, then we're perpetuating a problem. If we show up and we meet conflict with more conflict instead of lifting it up into a higher consciousness and praise it, we're perpetuating inequity. We are perpetuating injustice. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have stuff to do to stop the injustice in the world. But we can't do it with more anger. We can't do it with more conflict. The world is waiting for people who live from the consciousness of God within. I want to invite you this week to be a living affirmation. Let all your words be words of capital T truth. Be words of love. Not my truth. Right? Not that ego that is based in good but sometimes get distracted, not from the personality of you, but from the individualized expression you are. Speak from that and be words of love and of truth. Let each and every one of your choices be one that is rooted and that honors integrity. Let your heart extend justice and mercy. Let every action you take be one that is offered as an example of grace. See, when we live from the divine law within, this outside world begins to heal itself. When we change, the world changes. If you're willing this week, jot down some of your own thoughts. Contemplate, where is Spirit inviting me to bring justice into balance? Where is Spirit inviting me to bring justice into balance in my thoughts, in my home, in my work, in my community, and anywhere else in my life? The Spirit of truth lives within us. And it is the presence of peace and love and wisdom and of justice and strength that shows up as unbelievable courage to create a world that works for all, a peace-filled world, when we are at peace. And that's what I was invited to share today, friends. Thanks for listening.
Wow, Rev Todd. That was a wonderful message. Let us sing this one. Well, I'll sing this one, and I hope that you will help me in affirming Namaste. The Christ in me beholds the Christ in you, or the light in me beholds the light in you. Here we go. I celebrate the divinity in me, led by spirit joyfully. Namaste and blessed be. I honor my divinity. I celebrate the divinity in thee, led by spirit lovingly. Beauty fills everything I see. I honor your divinity. I celebrate the divinity in thee, led by spirit faithfully. More than flesh and body, I honor our divinity. We're gonna sing Namaste 4 times. Here we go. Namaste. Turn to someone and say it. Namaste again. Namaste. One more time. Namaste. Here we go. I celebrate the divinity in me, led by spirit joyfully. Blessings pour like rain on me. I honor my divinity. I celebrate the divinity in thee, led by spirit lovingly. Namaste and blessed be. I honor your divinity. Now we're gonna find someone and say Namaste. Here we go. Namaste. Okay, now we're gonna do it. Here we go. Namaste. Namaste. And someone else?